slides, but I'm Danielle. I am our Senior Strategic Partnerships Manager for our public sector partnerships here at Interplay Learning. So oftentimes I'm working to support folks either upstand programming in the skilled trades if they don't already have it, or help them supplement their existing programming. And that oftentimes is working with groups like correctional institutions, workforce boards, libraries, union and non-union training programs in a particular industry, the education sector, adult education center, so really a wide variety. But a lot of the work we do is adult education based. And we also work with employer partners who can help navigate that space since they're so different. So I'll let Nikki introduce herself too.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nikki Dwyer. I am from SSE Services for Education, and we are one of the business partners for Interplay. We implemented the program in our company almost 2 years ago, and it has been absolutely fantastic. So really excited to talk about how it impacted our business and what we're looking at in the future.
So first, really want to talk about trades programming as a whole and just get a sense of how many of you in the room have some sort or form of programming in the construction-based skilled trades. So like HVAC, electrical, plumbing, facilities maintenance, solar. Anybody with that type of programming in the room? Oh, okay. And with the way your programs are structured now, are those programs that you built and self-developed? Like, have you created those recently? Just looking to understand really how long trades has been a part of your programming.
Like a separate thing,
Okay.
like on our side of the campus, and we'll be hanging out sometimes and talk about stuff, but that's like kind of their thing, but you know.
So really close to what we do, I'm sure, but we're the service provider. Yeah, awesome. What about you? You raised your hand. Did you? No, in the pink. Yeah.
Well, it looks like
Yeah.
you're my head, so I don't know. Maybe kind of like it's more on our applied side, like I'm at a community college, so we have our adult education, but then we also have our academic programs and then your applied technical programs, so it's under that.
Awesome.
So finding a way to do just that, have a pathway or maybe into some of those type of programs. And then we have a workforce area that has some of the short-term early registration certificate and the electrical as well. So hoping to bring things back. So look forward to seeing what we're going to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I would definitely say variety of capacities in the community college sector, whether it's working with groups to kind of accelerate a non-credit program and get it to be a credit tracking program if you have those. Some schools we work with don't have credit programs in skilled trades, so really a variety of ways. So a lot of what we do at Interplay was based on the foundation that there are a lot of jobs open in the skilled trades. And I don't think that's a question to anyone in the room. We know that there are a lot of opportunities. It's just figuring out how to identify them, how to coach folks towards those open roles. So as you can see, a lot of times we're finding that employers are feeling these roles are hard to fill, and we're trying to understand what we can do to partner with employers like SSC to really tackle the training process and to make sure that information is not only widely disseminated, but that it's discoverable by potential applicants, potential employees as well. I think one thing that I always mention, I come from a trades family. My dad owns a small body shop. My husband is a marine repair technician. A lot of my friends dropped out of four-year degree programs to become electricians, elevator mechanics, facilities managers, right? And the rationale there, they were at a college preparatory high school, and really the intention is not to remove the lens that trades are a great career, but oftentimes that happens as an underlying accident, right? I mean, we think of a traditional four-year route as the standard way to go and to continue your education and further a career path for yourself, and oftentimes that can often feel like the trades are a backup plan when they should be a first choice. So a lot of this starts at the root. I know we're an adult education audience here at this conference, but It's thinking about if we're going to make that impact in the adult education space, how also can we get some of this education out when we're meeting learners at an earlier point, or even in the adult education space, giving them that exposure that these opportunities are available and not something that as an adult, they miss the ball on, and they can still jump into a program like this and have a very successful career regardless of when they transition, right? We see a lot of folks in apprenticeship programming that join when they're in their 40s, 50s, and it's a very viable career path for folks that are at that point as well.
But just kind of funny, or side note on that is that some of our, people who teach the programs, when they would go out with us into the high schools to tell about it, they would laugh at how many teachers they recruited more than even the
Yes.
students. And so that, when you said that, yeah, because they don't understand yet, but.
Yeah.
So they weren't trying to recruit the teachers, but just when they started telling what you could do and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tracks are great. I mean, and as you can see, the projected growth isn't stopping anytime soon. As we think about what it would take to really make an impact in filling these roles, some of the stats that we've seen done over the recent years really talks about how you probably need around 8,000 schools to open trades programs every single year to meet the demand, whether that's an adult education center, K-12, correctional institution offering programming. That's a lot of schools to open to meet the demand on just a 1 year period of time. So definitely curious, Nikki, really how you think that these hiring challenges might be affecting employers as it relates to the scope of understanding what is available for a learner, whether they are younger or adults looking to transition their career.
Yeah, so this was something our company has really struggled with for really the last probably 15 to 20 years, and we've been in business for about 55 years. That big push to that 4-year traditional degree, as you can see now in the trends, we are seeing an impact as we see a mass exodus in these skills trades workers retiring out. We've got a huge talent gap. So one of our challenges always is recruitment. Right? So not even the pay piece, and everybody wants to talk about the wages, and there could be really great money made after you get licensed and you enter into some of these fields, but some of them are a 4-year program, right? So how do we close that gap as an employer? Is we needed to start to look within and what kind of programs could we pull from our people? And if you think about facilities management or a lot of these general industries for construction, things like that, services industries, who runs the building we're in today, right? Making sure our lighting works and we have air conditioning and heating, it's going to be those essential folks. And we started looking at those people, right? The custodians who were looking for that next level to grow. We were giving those people the opportunity, but for us to be able to do that, we had to find a content provider and a partner to help us get our foot in the gate to offer programs like this. And that's how we became partners for now almost 2 years.
And the work of finding incredible employer partners like SSC is really a huge piece of the puzzle. So I would encourage, if you aren't already thinking about that as it relates to building up trades programming. We're very fortunate that we've worked with so many incredible partners like SSC, but it's thinking about who in your community is, as an employer, struggling with some of these challenges too. And oftentimes if trades programs aren't in consideration, it's not knowing the need in the area. So there's a lot of ways that I'm sure you're familiar with other industries for identifying really the demand in your region. And I would almost guarantee if you haven't already started considering the trades, for those who don't have those types of programs, you're going to find that there are a lot of employers out there that are ready, excited to take advantage of supporting your learners once they finish programming with you. So I'd say really the goal with the technology aspect is to really improve outcomes as it relates to apprenticeship programming. So a lot of folks say, like, can this do it all for me? And I don't think in my lifetime, in anyone's firm's lifetime, we're ever going to get to a point where technology is going to replace anything. And that's not our goal here at Interplay. Really what we want to do with incredible programs like the ones that SSC facilitates and programs that you all can facilitate is really understanding how we can, one, meet the learner where they're at, which has a lot to do with the kinesthetic nature of folks who want to move into these type of roles. And also never replace the hands-on, because the goal is to promote continued education, as I'm sure you all know, as folks in the education space, right? We're not ever trying to say, hey, we're gonna get this all done in a virtual setting, you're gonna go off into your job, and that's where it ends. Really, the goal is to make sure that we're prepping folks for that lifelong learning and getting them set up to become more comfortable and confident with what they're doing. And technology like simulations can help with that, since it's relatable and gives them a little bit of the hands-on before the hands-on, or that extra repetition that they would typically like to see in programming. So as we think about video-based resources, that is also a huge component of what we do. So how many of you are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy? Wonderful, I love that. So essentially with Bloom's taxonomy, we're trying to structure that higher order thinking. We help folks diagnose and repair like they would in a true on-the-job setting. And we start that with video-based learning, so they can identify and recall the tools that they're going to be using, the equipment they're going to be in front of. So a lot of folks see the simulations, get super excited, but the video-based aspect is really crucial to making sure that that simulated experience follows through with some of those pieces that they're going to need to be successful. So as it relates to virtual reality, I want to stress that with the simulation-based learning, virtual reality is just one component of how those simulations can be deployed. Simulations are really the bread and butter of what we do, because it promotes that hands-on opportunity, that gamification of getting in and working on a residential air conditioner and diagnosing some of the challenges that can happen with it, replacing wires, moving around fans, right? That's the goal of the simulation, similar to what you might think of when you think of a pilot getting in a simulator before they get in a plane with hundreds of passengers and a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. In what world would it be realistic for a pilot to get in a plane on their first go around learning, get up in the air and say, let's take this piece of metal for a whirl? That's never gonna happen, right? And simulations have been around for a long time in a lot of high cost, high risk fields. And that's why we brought it to the skilled trades, because there are also a lot of high risk, high cost aspects of not only training, but performing your daily roles in the skilled trades. We think about someone learning on electricity for the first time. That is definitely unsafe if we're not practicing in a simulated environment. Similarly, you think of the medical space, like I always say, the game Operation. I'm sure you've probably played that at some point or another in your lifetime. You're trying to get the heart, or you get the femur, and you get buzzed if something goes wrong. Of course, that is not how we train today's surgeons, or I'd be pretty concerned. But it gives you the same idea, right? It's trying to promote that awareness that you can't get from necessarily watching a video. You can't feel it. The video is crucial and important, let's not forget that, but this helps kind of transition that to the next level. Really serve as the bridge between that theory you're getting in the video and the practice that you'd be getting in a lab setting or on the job. So as we think about simulations, again, lots of different places where we've seen them used historically. Reason being, as we think about retention-based learning, naturally, you're probably going to remember 20% of what we talked about today. Just the nature of the way the human brain works and functions, and that's okay. But when we put someone in a simulated environment, again, regardless of whether it's virtual reality, let that be on a phone, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop, retention jumps up to 80%. And that's because you're doing, you're feeling, you're engaging, and you're able to, again, bridge that theory and practice, which I think is the biggest part. So really the goal with the simulations, keep folks more engaged, focused. Again, we spoke about some of the retention pieces and the comprehension, but it's going to also meet the needs of more learners that are out there. When we think about textbook style learning as it relates to the skilled trades, again, there's relevance for all of those modalities of curriculum, but really, again, you're trying to meet the learner where they're at, and these types of learners need to be doing, and we get feedback from instructors, training coordinators, learning and development specialists quite often. And when they cover book work, a lot of times it's like deer in headlights when they're asked to recall, or the retention is just not as predominant as you can get from the simulations. So really trying to apply it to that WBL concepts, those work-based learning. So we've talked about some of the benefits already, but really the goal with the simulations is to focus on lifelike troubleshooting so that learners can get unlimited practice in a safe, risk-free environment where they can get real-time feedback, since our simulations really focus on driving assessment behind them. So you can see really where learners are making mistakes, how they might need to progress into taking additional content if they're having troubles with particular areas. And really it promotes a competitive game-like environment for learners too, because they're going to get points for everything they do, and be able to see how they're competing amongst their peers. So really that gamification piece helps as well. There's a lot of ways in which the content provides aids to instructors and staff, but I think I would lean on you, Nikki, to kind of talk through some of the pieces as it relates to how your staff is seeing those in action.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about, looking at those textbooks and the content just not landing. What we have seen, and we did have about 30 apprentices in a traditional program with the textbook, without the simulation-based learning. And when we got to the testing point for the licensing, they were not passing the exams. They were still getting the hands-on approach. And so what we have seen with the new technology is it's becoming muscle memory. When we showed a video a second ago of an HVAC unit, those units, that is exactly what we are seeing at these facilities, right? So for the learner experience, it is that start to finish. So it's like receiving a work order, you're troubleshooting, but it's everything from even that first point of safety. So you saw in the last one, they were picking out their PPE. So we're even testing them from that first point of contact. Are they using the right PPE? We're teaching them how to use the tools, how to identify it, how to read those measuring gauges. And then going through, and what we absolutely loved with this is it's leveled, right? You and I can go into the program today not knowing anything and start to advance our knowledge, or say coming in as a skilled worker and you've been licensed for 20 years. We have assessments built into the program, and it's really interesting to hear them say, you can't teach me anything new, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I've been doing this for years. We say, hey, take the assessment, help me pick this program apart. We did it. I have folks who have taken every single course and come back with questions. And I love it when they get their assessment back and it's like 68. I'm like, so you didn't know everything, right? And so then it also gave us a starting point for the people who have some foundational knowledge. Guess what? We don't need to start from phase 1. We can go to phase 2 or phase 3 and start to expand their knowledge in those fields, and even start to cross-train them into other related areas. So we have seen a huge advancement, the engagement, they enjoy taking the courses. It's not a chore. They're not making excuses not to show up to their scheduled training session, which they're paid, right? They're paid to sit there and take these courses. And even talking about some challenges like technology gaps, right? So more advanced age of our associates thinking, Nikki, they're never going to get on and play this computer game, right? They're getting on and they're enjoying it, and it's easy to navigate. So we're not seeing a technology challenge with this platform as well. So it has been just easy for us to implement. But of course, implementing any new program takes a lot of work and a lot of buy-in from all stakeholders. But it's been very, very successful for us.
Some of the other pieces as it relates to program benefits, really, especially as it relates to adult education and getting folks started who might not yet be employed or are seeking employment in the near future is the fact that, to Nikki's point, implementation and rolling out a program like this is no small feat. It's important work, but that doesn't mean it's easy work. It can be difficult to build out programs like this if you don't have them in existence. And even when you do have them in existence, there's a lot of cost associated with them because of the level of equipment. So a lot of times with the simulations, similar again to the medical and aviation space, really the goal is to not only help with some of those student benefits, instructor benefits, but also programmatically, how can we help reduce cost and ensure efficiency for program structure? So really the simulations will allow you to reduce some of those equipment and material costs and to really access equipment that you might not be able to get on site in programming. I think about a lot of instructors who have told me that, have you seen the price of copper lately? Bending conduit is not something that I can always teach someone in the program super quickly, super effectively, and know that they're not gonna absolutely go through my consumables budget that I set as a line item a year ago, 2 years ago, depending on how budgets are structured. Really allowing folks to get the wear and tear on the simulations rather than product is often a benefit of the simulations as well. And then when you think about the equipment types that you might not have access to, a lot of schools aren't able to pull up, for example, I think of you in New York. We work very closely with a union in New York that does not have access to a centrifugal pump, which is enormous. Oftentimes they're bigger than this room. And to be able to bring those into a training lab, it's not super realistic, but someone's gonna need to know how to identify that in the field and potentially work on it. And sometimes folks might not even see those until they're in year 2, 3 on the job. So being able to give them that exposure early on and often is going to help, again, boost that comfortability and confidence, which is gonna improve the outcomes of the learners. Another huge piece, space savings. A lot of times folks will run hybrid programming or allow folks to take programming from home completely, complemented with in-person or hands-on or connecting them to an employer after the program is finished. But really that helps to allow with some of those space saving components where you might be thinking, how can I run cohorts of this programming effectively? Or especially in adult education, right? I'm sure you offer a lot of programs at night and folks are tired after they work all day or they're attending to their family and then getting into additional programming to better their career. And really that flexibility is helpful because something that they can do independently. So ultimately, really trying to set folks up for success regardless of whether you're able to have a full-time equivalent instructor for a program like this, or you say, I can only have a facilitator for this program, and it's really hard to find that subject matter expertise unless you're recruiting from schools who are like, I want to teach in this aspect too. Those are some pieces that I think are important that are often left unconsidered because we're thinking about the student, when in reality, when we can reduce some of these costs, it actually helps the students as well too. So as we think about AI learning and how AI is such a big component in today's technology landscape, something that Interplay's done to help support with that difficulty maybe of finding a facilitator or finding a full-time equivalent instructor, we've been able to incorporate in a lot of our academic programming a resource called SAM. And SAM is our skill advisor and mentor. It's really an AI-powered learning and skill development tool that can help sharpen critical thinking and save time for the learner and save time for your program so that learners, if you don't have that subject matter expertise in the trades, can really get some support they need and tap into that expert knowledge. So as a learner is chatting with Sam throughout a simulation, it's important to note that there's a variety of resources a learner gets in the simulation. To Nikki's point, we're not going to just put someone in a simulated scenario who has never used a multimeter before, right? And they need to diagnose and repair an air conditioner with the use of a multimeter to test for voltage, things like that, as they're maybe replacing an indoor fan relay, for example, in that piece of equipment. But really, we'll walk them through what's called a procedure guide, and that procedure guide tells them step by step exactly what they need to do to get to those competencies faster and more effectively. Again, that's followed by video-based learning, where we'll have subject matter experts walking them through the simulations they're gonna complete. But we gradually reduce that guidance so that at the end, you won't see it here, but there's usually that procedure guide at the top of the screen that walks them through in our training mode. That's removed here because ultimately the goal is to get them working completely independently. So they can jump into a residential or commercial setting in one of our simulations. And they can diagnose and repair independently without the use of that procedure guide. Now you're probably thinking, I'm sure they're gonna have questions, even though they went through the content, and yes, they can go back and revisit. But really, the goal of SAM and that AI support is not only to offer things like translation services for a learner who might need support in that regard, but to allow them to ask questions and we won't give them the answers. Reason being, we're gonna follow a Socratic model, where essentially they'll ask a question, and we'll spit it back with another question, as you can see here, right? When the student says, where should I be checking for a leak? Because they think that that might be the issue that they're experiencing in the simulation based on some diagnoses they've made. We'll give them some positive feedback and say, great question. Here's how you should check for a leak, but do you notice any wet or damp spots or signs of corrosion? The learner says, no, I don't. So they're like, maybe we should be considering something else other than a leak. Why is your first thought to check for a leak? Right, so essentially that SAM tool is gonna give the learner some opportunities to understand really what it is that they are actually looking for to make them a more well-rounded diagnoser, I guess you could say in this case, which will be very important to what they're doing on the job. I'm sure Nikki can speak to some of the pieces that it relates to how crucial time is as it relates to some of these impactful careers, as we think if the lights went out in our room today, or all of a sudden it's 95 degrees out instead of the gorgeous 70s that we had today and the AC's gone. Like, time is of the essence.
I love how you think 95 is warm.
Me.
I'm like, we got Texas folks in here. They're like, no, like 120, air conditioning's out, power grid's done. Who's responding to that? Yep.
So I'll lean on you, Nikki, to
Yeah.
really share a little bit more about your experience, and I don't know if you want to drive the slides or if you want me to drive them for you, but
You
I
can
would-
go ahead. I think we
Okay.
were just gonna have just a casual conversation. And I'll get into, I think you jumped ahead a little bit, but why apprenticeship programs, right? We talked about having that talent gap, the cost of it, right? Hiring somebody right out of school, you're probably going to pay a little bit more money. We can also talk about the loyalty of that associate. You know, we're talking about it right now with any industry. They can go right across the street and make an extra $2 an hour. You know, we're constantly competing for workforce, and it doesn't matter where that talent pool is coming from. So if you talk about investing in your people, if you're a leader in your organization or you're a teacher, you're an educator, and you're growing those folks and you're investing in them, that starts to grow this piece of loyalty. And so if you think about as an employer, we're investing in our people in the hopes that it is going to turn around in loyalty and they're going to stick with us. A 4-year investment, it doesn't cost them anything but their time. And we fit it into their normal working schedule, which is really cool because that is where they're getting that hands-on experience. So we're scheduling time during their average working day for them to go take a course, and then they're able to take that knowledge and actually go work on a work order that came in. If it's, you know, a plumbing issue or an electrical issue or a heating issue, they're able to take that real-time experience, work side by side with a mentor to coach them through and continue that conversation, because they're always going to be partnered with somebody that is more senior than them in the experience. So we're not just handing them a work order and saying, hey, George, go work on that. We're not doing that. They're getting that hands-on coaching with the content, which that's where we're building that knowledge and giving them that safe environment to learn. And like you said, not zap themselves like the game Operation, which you can zap yourself in interplay in some of the more advanced courses and it's like game over. You are now dead, right? Like, it's like you get to start all over again, start level 3 again. But what is really cool to talk about, you brought it up really quickly if you said there was a language barrier. And one thing that one of our largest challenges was that language barrier. Most of our people in facilities management are Spanish speaking. And hey, guess what? I don't speak Spanish. And I was the one delivering 90% of the content to our associates. So how do I bridge that gap? It's very hard. There's a lot of content out there. Most of it is not translated. That was a huge win for us with this partnership is the learner can go down and switch the language. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I know Spanish 100% is available. We have native Spanish speaking learners in the program taking all of the course content in Spanish. Sam is in Spanish as well, so they're able to break that here. And I want to say French.
We've started French translation. We don't have our full catalog translated. I'd say it's much more elementary compared to the vast opportunity available in Spanish in our platform.
Another big question I get when I brought all of my facilities into Charlotte to onboard this new program, right? We talked about buy-in. You're launching a new program. How do you get buy-in? Nikki, how do you do it? We're in 32 different states. Well, I can't be there all the time to push them every single day. So we brought them together and we talked about it and they said, hey, Nikki, well, we all need the VR headsets. Or there's no way I'm putting one of those on. Who have sat in some of those VR like rides in Disney and you get nauseous? I can't. I can't do it. But guess what? That doesn't change the learner experience. So you're taking the same course on your phone, your tablet, or a computer as if you were putting on that VR headset. But a good storytelling moment is I was like, watch, anybody can do this. And you put the VR headset on and you draw your outline. So it sets you in the room for your VR experience. And what I didn't think about is when I was setting up the VR headset, I was off to the side while my co-presenter was talking through the program and I stood up and put the headset on. I was getting ready to take the training and I entered the virtual room. And because I set my space sitting down, when I went into the virtual room, the table was here. So here I am trying to prove how easy this is, looking like a fool, waving my arm up in the air, like this is how you work on the tool, and we casted it on the big screen TV in a very much setting like this, so they could see the trouble I was having. We were able to back out, reset the space and show them what the experience is really supposed to look like. But it just shows you that there's a humorous point to it. Like, right, we can all laugh at ourselves, but anybody could use the technology, but the experience wasn't any different. So then we backed out of the VR portion, went back into the course and showed them we navigated the course just on the computer. So if they were coming back and saying, hey, Nikki, we don't have the budget to buy a $500 VR headset for our account. Okay, great. You don't need one. Because we have budget restraints too. And I know like if you guys are looking to implement a program, that's what it is. But what we have found in previous experiences in running in a program for several years since 2015, with our apprenticeship program using 2 content providers, it was much more expensive and much harder to make sure the curriculum was consistent across the board. And we found this to be a seamless process. Everything's in one area. Because just a raise of hand, who's still manually tracking a lot of what you do on a day-to-day basis? Anybody? We were manually tracking everything from OJT hours to all of their training content between 2 different providers because it wasn't on one dashboard. Now it's on one dashboard. We only have to go to one place. All of our reporting is there. And that has been our experience with the program, is to make our lives a little bit easier. So we don't have to do the manual tracking and have 15 Excel spreadsheets and, pulling from 15 different contents. Now, when we talk about the learning experience, so we're here today talking a lot about the apprenticeship program, but how do we get to that point, right? You can't just come in and say, hey, Nikki, I want to be an apprentice. we have a process, a selection process. They can declare interest, or we can go to them as a manager and say, hey, you've been working with us for 2 years. Have you thought about career growth? What does that path look like? And we start to have that conversation with them. And if they're interested, here's what's really cool too, is we also use the Interplay content for our standard annual training for all of our maintenance workers. So everybody's already taking training content. They're already familiar with the program. So if they enter into Interplay as an apprentice, guess what? All of that previous learning experience comes right with them into their apprenticeship program, and they're already ahead of the game. Super cool. So they're not losing anything, because I don't know about you guys, and I might be the oddball. I maybe have changed my career, my degree program a couple of times as I was learning how to be an adult in my early years. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. This is what's really cool is, hey, they have to do it for work anyways. And if they find something that they're interested in, guess what? They've already kind of started the content, and they're not losing anything, and they're ahead of the game, which is really cool. Trying to think. Has it been hard? The hardest part about an apprenticeship program is getting approved in the states or regions, jurisdictions, unions. What does that look like, right? And I think it's a great lead in, because we're going to talk about, why a registered program? What is a registered program? Can we do non-traditional apprenticeship programs? Yeah, sure you can, right? But it's all going to be based on where you live. If you have the union component, which we have union accounts as well. And you guys have a benefit, I think, for some of you is maybe being in one location, right? Like one campus. We're navigating 14 different states right now for approval. So it's a process. But once you do it, is anybody running an active apprenticeship program in here right now? No. So if you were to have an employee or a student that started a program somewhere else, guess what? If you implement an apprenticeship program, we can possibly consider that previous experience and training that they received going into their apprenticeship program, which is really cool too. And I can talk to this. We are actually in the process of transitioning about 30 apprentices here in the state of Texas in all 3 lines. So plumbing, electrician, and HVAC. Some of them are 2 to 3 years into their program. And we're going to transfer them over into the Interplay platform, and it should be a seamless process. Yes.
You guys ever worked with hospitals? We don't have a apprenticeship program, but hospitals need electricians, hospitals need HVAC workers. We need all of these trades that you're talking about. It's not just clinical people. So we do hire all of them as well. Have you ever had any success in starting an apprenticeship program?
Yes.
Setting?
Yeah. So one of my largest accounts, being in higher education, has clinical space, medical facilities on campus, which we also do all of the maintenance for those buildings as well. So it is, you can transition it into other workforce. I use the hospitality, right? All the hotels, convention centers, they have electricians, they have engineers. And so it could not just be in my space where I'm education, I do facilities management. It could be in healthcare, it can be in B&I, sports entertainment, anything like that. So it is very much a sought after piece. So it's not just my problem, right? At SSC, we're not the only ones having the hiring problem. It's all kinds of industries across the board, and residential even. So you need it for your house. You're calling a plumber, right? Your water main broke, something crazy like that. We need these folks, and we need the training. You kind of dabbled into it just a little bit. We talked about that early exposure into the programs to gain that interest. So I know I've got some folks that are in the K-12 space in here as well. CTE programs are a great opportunity to start to implement some of these trainings, even if it's just an exploratory workshop. Having companies come in and bring their SMEs is to talk to your students about what their journey look like, what their day-to-day looks like is such a valuable thing to do for your students. I've partnered with several of my K-12 accounts. We bring our SMEs in, we've talked to them, and we've even offered summertime internship opportunities for those high school workers. They have to be over the age of 17 just because of security things, but it's a great introduction into, hey, maybe I want to do this instead of the 4-year traditional path. So, yes.
On the CDL program, we're trying to make it, an apprenticeship. Now we're trying to have our instructors to be test administrators, so they need to be able to evaluate the students for the program to be considered an apprenticeship. So do you offer any trainings for instructors to be testers?
So for an apprenticeship program, and Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong here, the testing is all done through the state because it's a government license. So that's going to go through a certification board, like the plumbing board here in Texas. So where we come into play is we have knowledge checkpoints, and there are going to be kind of those checkpoints throughout. As a manager of somebody in the apprentice program or a journey worker licensed, journey worker, mentoring those folks, that's where they're getting it. It's when they get to the testing or the exam point for their license. But we leave that to the government because that's where it's going to have to be. Yeah, so we don't offer the testing. We do have some certifications that will proxy.
We offer any training for the instructors to be testing administrators.
No,
For example,
no,
to have-
No,
to be teachers, no?
No, not to be teachers. So we have our instructors, but they have to pass this test at the state. I'm from Florida.
mhm,
For the program to be considered an apprenticeship, they have to be an evaluator for the students, otherwise they
Ah.
don't have the apprenticeship.
yeah,
That makes sense. So we would have the instructor would also be
Yeah.
evaluators on site.
yeah. So we've not come across that with our lines of apprenticeship. And you said your CDL?
Yes.
Yeah. So being a different industry, that's gonna be kind of a different program. I've not seen that in the 14 states that we're operating apprenticeship programs in. That we need to be licensed to be that. They go to the state for the exam, and that's something that we pay for and send them off to. So it's all. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
that's something we definitely be willing to explore, partnering on understanding how, because we onboard, we do implementation with all of our instructors, we get them set up with resources to administer our platforms reporting and coursework, but I'm sure there are ways collaborating on apprenticeship programming where we can find a way to better understand that process with you and understand what value we might be able to provide to instructors to get them prepared for that type of situation.
all right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I came late, sorry, maybe you already said in the meeting. So when you start with this program, it's only the software or you have a teacher, you need to have a teacher and the software?
So we provide on our staff to be able to have an apprenticeship program. Yes, you have a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning you need to have a licensed individual mentoring that apprentice.
Okay, because I was thinking in the, since of the test that they have to pass through the state. So let's say like anybody can just go and do the test, maybe they pass, or they need to have a training.
Yes,
They need to have.
so throughout the 4 years, you're constantly reporting to the Department of Labor, all of the hands-on training, the OJT training, as well as the RTI content training. So you have to prove that yes, that you are eligible to take that exam.
Oh, okay, so somebody that is like, without training, but having like 20 years,
Yeah.
without license, they gotta go and pass the test. They need to go to the.
Yes, some states will look at work experience, but not most of them. Yeah, yeah.
And I think it can vary state to state, but a lot of the typical standards are somewhere around 4-year program. There are states that offer 3-year programming for different tracks and industries that we collaboratively support. But it typically is somewhere around 144 hours of related training instruction, which counts with either instructor-led training or utilizing the online programming for that. And then coupled with that, each year, about $2,000,
$2,000 hours.
I actually got $2,000 an hour. 2,000 hours each year of that, the job training that they're gonna get, that couples and mirrors a lot of what they're learning in the related training and instruction. And with the apprenticeship programming, that's a piece that Interplay we definitely recommend as the best approach in our Better Careers for Better Lives mission, because apprenticeship is going to give learners so many more opportunities in terms of increasing their wages, finding stable employment with an incredible employer who is going to provide them those resources again at no cost, really set them up for success and invest in them as an employee. There are other ways to get some of the foundational training, to Nikki's point earlier, covered ahead of going into an apprenticeship program, or if you're looking to better understand if the trades is for you before you commit and dedicate yourself to a full apprenticeship program. So there are shorter duration programs that Interplay offers, but oftentimes we're funneling, suggesting, advising folks move into that apprenticeship program after their time with us, because they can be an entry-level technician after taking a lot of our training, but the path to success and seeing that career trajectory is through an apprenticeship program.
Awesome.
Are you title 2, title 1, or are they enrolled in adult education? Or
No.
it's just a separate program?
Yeah, so we apply for a certification with the state to say that we can be the content provider. So in our partnership, I'm the employee, I'm the sponsor of the associates, I'm providing the learners. And then Interplay goes and makes sure that all of the content meets the state requirements. So we go in as a partner, and then we write off, not write off, but our managers verify all hours work, and then we submit it to the state.
Okay, so the funding, how do you get the funding to pay the students?
So that's a great question. Did you have anything on the grants and?
Yeah, as it relates to different funding to get folks into programming or build this programming up, I know in the workforce development space, a lot of folks will use WIOA dollars and apply, because Interplay has a lot of state eligible training provider list approval. So depending on the state, we can definitely chat after and see if we have some of those some access on those lists, I should say. So a lot of folks will use WIOA funding. If we're in an education setting in adult ed, we'll use, a lot of folks will use Perkins to supplement some of that as well.
What, can you, like,
WIOA, it's the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and a lot of times that channel of funding will come through your Department of Labor at your state or other areas within the state to really support innovative opportunities like technology, and a lot of folks will apply that directly towards a program like this that they're upstanding from scratch.
Yeah, and we do both. We do grant writing to receive grant money for our programs, as well as fund it as a corporate, entity. We fund it as an investment into our associates.
So, oh yeah, so do they need in the apprenticeship that you are, you have right now, do they need to have the high school equivalency diploma?
Nope.
No.
So when we talked about the selection process for apprentice, you can set your criteria as what they need coming to the table. So you could say high school graduate must be 18, years old. You can set that. So like one of mine is they must have employment for at least 6 months with no progressive counseling incidents, right? So they're a good upstanding employee. So you can set your criteria for your program. The state may have some standards there, but the high school diploma or GHG, you
What
don't
is
need
the
it.
meaning? Let's say, do you assess the people or minimum basic education or, you know, to accept it?
So we do, as the employer, we do. So we have, well, they have the assessments built in here, but I do have some like qualifying programs that we do in-house to just see, you know, competency levels, right? Literacy levels and things like that. Yep.
I will move your side.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, I'm Kristen Howland. I work on the customer marketing team at Interplay. And I helped Nikki and Danielle craft the slides. We're happy you guys are all here. Hopefully you're all learning something.
Yeah. I think we were talking next on the 4 myths about a registered apprenticeship program. Do you want to go ahead and click through? I think we got a couple of them listed.
Yep.
So registered means that we are approved with the state, and I think you can go ahead and work through. Yep. So go ahead and open all of them. Let's see here, so I don't work ahead. There we go. So myth 1, apprentice won't stick around. Bless you. Not true. We have, oh geez, like I said, I've got over 30 active here in Texas. And I would say our dropout rate is very low. I think the last report I ran is about a 20% dropout rate. They continue to work for us. I mean, they're gaining something beyond a paycheck when they're going through these programs. Apprenticeships aren't effective. Well, I guess it depends on who's running it, right? There's that mentorship capacity, and just like any program, you've got to manage it. So as long as you have your program in place and you're actively running your program, it's going to be successful. It's going to be effective. It's a great space to do corrective action when, you know, it's a safe place to make mistakes. That's what's really great, is they're not doing out there. It's not costing the company a lot of money. It's a safe environment. So that's where we're getting there. Setting up an apprenticeship requires a ton of work from the employer. So yes, if you're doing it on your own, it can be a big lift. I worked on it for about 2.5 years. Navigating the government space can be difficult. Understanding what the state's criteria is. Are you going to meet it? Do you have the right RTI content provider for your technical training? Do you have people on staff that can mentor those folks? So yeah, can it be a big lift? Sure. But where Interplay came in, and honestly, this is what sold me, is they do the big lift for me. They're navigating the government space, making sure that we meet all the criteria. They're doing the paperwork. They are actively managing the program at that program level. We provide the people, we're managing them on the day-to-day, but they're doing the check-in points. They're applying for those apprenticeship cards. They're reporting all of the hours to the DOL for us. They're keeping our people on track, as well as supporting the managers who are leading the apprentice through the program. So there's a lot of big lift support there. So is it a ton of work? Not anymore. Apprenticeships are too expensive. You guys heard me say we have built it into their normal working days. So the wages that you're already probably paying could do that. You filter it in. So what is it? 30 minutes of labor a week, maybe, for their RTI content that they're working on a computer and not doing their normal day-to-day job learning that. There are, you know, wage scales that you have to do for an apprenticeship program. You can set it up to how you want it to look like. Is it an increase after each year's completion? There's all kinds of wage analysis reports out there to know, are you in the market? Are you being competitive? Can you step it up a little? So there's some budget components in there too, but content expense wise, it's not expensive. I mean, if you're thinking about a couple $100s of investment a year per person.
So you pay the time that they take, okay.
Yep,
And
paid
so
training.
So, oh, you are HR? Like.
Yeah, so I'm a director of learning and development. Yes, I guess I'm a branch of HR. I just don't do the mean stuff. Yes, yes.
Okay, so Danielle left me high and dry. So one thing that we are excited about is interplay learning has been in existence since 2016. And we have been specifically focused on the skilled trades. About 3 to 4 months ago, good timing, I'm gonna take that. About 3 to 4 months ago, we actually bought another company with funding from Goldman Sachs called ITI. And what that allowed us to do is to expand our offering now to light industrial. We're moving into heavy industrial, so things like crane and rigging that were not, technically part of the skilled trades. Now we're able to move into manufacturing facilities and do a lot more of the heavy lifting, literally,
Yes.
Yep.
getting towards more of the- Yeah, exactly. And that's what the partnership with ITI has afforded us. Stuff. You're welcome. That's the wrap.
That's the wrap.
So I know Kristen covered a lot of it, but really the goals behind the synergy between the two organizations is to figure out how we can grow our service to learners like the ones that you're all serving. And what's great about our partnership with ITI, they've brought a lot of those trusted employers that are incredible, like SSC services, to really help us fulfill that mission. As you can see, really, I think what is an important piece to note is that in our partnership growth with ITI, they've trained a lot of learners. Those 100,000 learners since they've been founded. As you can see on the left-hand side, since we cover a variety of other disciplines, to Nikki's point about all of the natural trades that go into that facilities maintenance track, really the opportunities for career alignment are endless. So love how things are coupled, but as you can see, just in a short period of time with the content from Interplay as well, that's really what's going to allow learners to funnel not only through Interplay's content, but ITI's on those tracks that are going to give them the options to either change which career path they want to move forward in, but holistically hope that they get that full understanding before they move into an apprenticeship program. So I know we've already gone through some questions together today, but what other questions are top of mind for y'all as you think about considering apprenticeship programming? Because I know that each of you has your own unique reason for attending today's session and learning more about apprenticeship programs and how they're structured, how they function, and the technology you can bring to advance and accelerate those. But what is top of mind for you if it hasn't already been covered in today's session as it relates to apprenticeship programming?
So both sides, so for you, Vicky, understanding your program, when you said that apprenticeship, they have to already be working for y'all, did you mention something about 6 months, or can they apply?
Right now, it's active employees. We are looking at external as we grow, right? New ways to attract new talent. We are looking at partnerships in some areas where there'll be direct hires as apprentice right into the program. We just haven't done it yet. Yep.
And then on the enterprise side, in terms of who you're working with and using the technology with, is it primarily with employers, or do you work with any education or institutions?
Great question. Yeah, I'd say it's a very solid combination of both. When we got started in 2016, we were initially working with employers like SSC services, not them at the time. Our partnership is longstanding so far, but newer compared to when we got started about a decade ago. Really working with anyone ranging from small mom and pop shops that have 3 or 4 technicians and really need to figure out how to upskill those technicians that either came to them with no experience and they did that training themselves in-house, or folks who came to them from another employer and they really did things a different way at their organization. Ranging all the way through to large manufacturers, you might recognize some of the names in the space like Daikin, Carrier, Train, Ream, who we build custom content for, so that they can help deliver that to organizations that utilize their products in the field. And then I would say more recently, probably in around 2000, which was naturally at the height of the pandemic, when education programs in the trade space were like, we focus on hands-on, what can we do? We really started connecting on the education and workforce development front. So say for education, really anyone ranging from K-12 all the way up through to community college with workforce development program arms or adult education arms, technical college programs. We work with apprenticeship programs, either supplement or help them build out a trades track at a union or a non-union trade association, libraries, workforce boards, correctional institutions. So really, you have a need for trades training, we're gonna do our best to support with either building out a program for you if you don't have one, or supplementing an existing program like Nikki's that already had a great foundation, but needed a bit more support to see some of the outcomes they were hoping to drive home and refine as they grew the program.
Yeah.
Thank you. A follow up to that, and this is Farm Program 101, that you said you have the different ones. So if someone's looking to partner with you, you have to say, we want electrical or we want HVAC, or can you get multiple ones?
Great question. So you
We
can
got 'em
really
all.
move through everything. Yeah, so Nikki's team definitely moves through a majority of our content in our various catalogs, but the way our platform works, it's typically a site license structure. So you're able to access any of the various catalogs within our general catalog. So if you want to cover HVAC, electrical, plumbing, solar, safety, facilities maintenance, it's all encompassing. I would say a lot of times folks think, I want to upstand an electrical program, so I need access to the electrical catalog. Oftentimes, you're gonna naturally be cross-training in different industries, so you might pull in a little bit of HVAC because there's electrical there, or you might pull in some of the safety content, professional development content, so we have run into scenarios where we can provide specific courses for specific programs, but I'd say 9 times out of 10, folks are accessing content from a variety of our catalogs and it's all inclusive. The one other thing I'll add is that as it relates to academy style programming, which is the completely self-paced where you might run shorter duration programming all the way up through to apprenticeship programming. Really that academy style platform will guide a learner through career exploration as well if you don't have a facilitator for that. And then they can move into a training track of their choice. So there's a lot of options to take that load off of your staff, your team members to really help the learner understand what they would likely be most interested in. Do some interest assessments and things like that too for the career exploration side, which is usually predominantly for education and workforce development partners.
Well, and one thing that I like that you talked about as well is, we're kind of cross-training into these other areas because you need to have kind of that common knowledge through. But you talked about the professional development, and they actually have professional development courses built in to the apprenticeship program to help that. So it's not just you're only going to learn HVAC, it's we're also going to develop you as a professional. So about customer service, about communication, which I thought was really cool because I know that's something that we struggled with the natural, population that we're looking at. It's like, what is, making eye contact, smiling and things like that. So there's a lot of really great additional components to the training.
So,
You got time.
so I lost the part probably, so you work for a company that does what?
So we do facilities management, so custodial grounds and maintenance and construction
So you
for
provide-
education institutions. So my company only services K-12 and higher ed facilities. And so that's what we do. So I have folks that come from custodial and enter into an apprenticeship program in maintenance, and then we have
So-
our maintenance workers. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
And we partner with a variety of groups, ranging from employers all the way through to educational institutions that might not be employing folks directly, but are looking to get folks employed post completion of programming with them. So really kind of meeting the learner where they're at.
So what is your goal, to be in the conference, to obtain more partnerships in Texas, in nationwide?
Really share more about apprenticeship programming and give
Okay.
folks an opportunity to understand how they could either start an apprenticeship program, supplement their apprenticeship program with technology, and just understand the resources that are out there as it relates to the skilled trades.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm here to support, but to talk about our experience, but it's the content, right? The platform that they're getting their training from. The quality of the simulation training through Interplay is by far much better than other content providers, not talking bad about any other company, but we've tried multiples, right? And they didn't work and the content wasn't landing and the apprentice were struggling when they were going to take their exam and they were having to go and take it 2, 3, 4 times because the content just wasn't engaging. It was very dry and old, and this way it's in color, it's real life, it is the exact tool that you're using, it's the step-by-step process, and then you're reinforcing it in that day-to-day work. Yeah.
That because it's a little bit challenging for my program in this
Yeah.
case to create, and it's, I am Title II, so I am trying to find concurrently, so it's the WIOA losses in the case of Title IIs. To put concurrently educational training,
Mhm.
and since you don't need the GED, let's say, or could be ESL student.
Oh.
Maybe we just put the skills, but it's going to be, you have to study, you have to be enrolled in my program to provide you that part. So it could be a completely different program than what I am currently running.
Yeah.
But I was thinking if you have, little trainings, industry recognized,
Mhm.
that it's, I cannot have a student for years or 2, because it's completely a different setup. They are working
Yeah.
with you, so here is they want to get basic skills or ESL students, so I want the environment, that's why I'm here, the virtual reality, the simulation is what I want. And if you have little training certified, or that they can get certification.
Yep.
Less hours.
Yep, we definitely do. Yep,
Yep.
we have opportunities for folks, sort of our foundational academy product is really going to put learners through programs ranging from 50 to 100 hours in length versus a 4-year program that they can hopefully complete in a smaller cohort. But again, the goal is always to help set them into a role with an employer that they can really connect with and get into those further opportunities once they get to the employer. So if the goal is employability, right, and getting them into a job fast, that's gonna turn into a career for them, we do have those shorter duration programs that can help. And then the goal, connecting them to employers where they can continue their training down the road and seek licensure.
So the software itself provides a test that is industry recognized.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, and that's it. I know, yeah.
So I know we have like 1 minute or actually
think
we're
we're
out of time, so we're happy to answer more questions, but just want to be mindful that you have other activities to get to today, but we really
Yes.
appreciate your time and learning more about how apprenticeship programming can impact your life.
Yeah, and if you guys have any more questions on my side too, feel free to go into the session, find my contact information, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm always open for a conversation and always looking to be that extended employer partner for programs, education programs as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
This agent. Medical.
Yeah.
Talking about. Yeah. So I work for